The acceptance of the resolution was a moment of strength, not weakness, by Sri Lanka. A statement from Prince Zaid Al Hussein. Tensions fly in Parliament over opposition groups' request to be considered independents. Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca sworn in as National List MP. Parliament adopts bill to increase female local government representation amid tensions. Himanshu Eshran, fastest in South Asia.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your Primetime News Bulletin with me, Shen Silva, and my co-anchor Aishwarya. Very good evening, Aishwarya.
Good evening. Before we take a look at our top story tonight, just a reminder to our viewers that you can follow us on our Twitter handle at Newsfirst.lk and join the conversation by using the hashtags featured on each of our stories tonight.
On to our stories in detail now. Concluding his official visit to Sri Lanka, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Prince Zaid Rad Al Hussein, convened a media briefing in Colombo this evening.
This has been a much more friendly, cooperative and encouraging visit than the one my predecessor endured in August 2013, which, as you may recall, was marred by the vituperative attacks on her integrity simply because she addressed a number of burning human rights issues that any High Commissioner for Human Rights would have raised at the time. I am aware that some of the same people have given me a similar welcome. I've seen the posters, but I am pleased that in the new environment in Sri Lanka, all voices, including the moderate voices of civil society, can at last be heard, even if sometimes the voices of hatred and bigotry are still shouting the loudest, and as a result are perhaps being listened to more than they deserve.
The UN Human Rights Chief also spoke on Sri Lanka's progress in the field of human rights.
Sri Lanka has come a long way in the past year, as you, the media, are only too aware. Given the much greater freedom you now have to write what you wish to write and report what you feel you should report. The element of fear has considerably diminished, at least in Colombo and the south. In the north and the east it has mutated, but sadly still exists. Virtually everyone agrees that there has been progress, although opinions differ markedly about the extent of that progress. Several recent highly symbolic steps have been taken that have had a positive impact on intercommunal relations, including the decision taken to sing the national anthem in both Sinhala and Tamil on Independence Day for the first time since the early 1950s. The following day, in a reciprocal gesture, the Chief Minister of the Northern Province paid a respectful visit to a Buddhist temple in Jaffna. And in January, the President pardoned the convicted LTTE prisoner who once plotted to assassinate him. These are significant steps on the path of reconciliation between the two communities, both of which bear their own deep scars from the years of conflict. Distracted by this conflict, Sri Lanka has also failed to address critical issues facing women, people with disabilities, people with different sexual orientations and other groups suffering discrimination, such as the plantation Tamils in central Sri Lanka. I hope that these and other neglected or discriminated against groups and minorities will now receive the attention they deserve, not least in the constitutional reform process.
Attention was also drawn towards a statement made by the Prime Minister.
Repairing the damage done by a protracted conflict is a task of enormous complexity, and the early years are crucial. If mistakes are made or significant problems are downplayed or ignored during the first few years, they become progressively harder to sort out as time goes on. While there is much support for the very important proposed constitutional reform, which should ensure the rights of all Sri Lankans, or that the rights of all Sri Lankans are fully recognized, there are also fears that at a later stage this may be achieved at the expense of other equally important processes such as truth-telling, justice and accountability. Prime Minister's recent statement that nearly all the disappeared persons are dead has created great distress among their families who until then still had hope. This statement must be followed by rapid action to identify precisely who is still alive and who has died or been killed, properly account for their deaths, including whether or not they were unlawful, identify the location of their remains, and provide redress.
Prince Saeed Al Hussein also noted that the acceptance of the Geneva Resolution was not a weakness on the part of Sri Lanka.
There are many myths and misconceptions about the resolution.
Prior to the media briefing this evening, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Prince Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein met with President Maithripala Sirisena today.
Rights Chief and President Maithripala Sirisena took place at the President's office. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Prince Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein also met with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees today. Later, the Human Rights High Commissioner met with Opposition Leader R. Sambandhan. Following the meeting with the Opposition Leader, said that the discussion with the UN Human Rights Chief was highly successful.
The President, in an interview to the BBC, Mr. High Commissioner said that international judges will not be included.
We recommended a hybrid court.
The territorial integrity of the country would be threatened by such a move.
It's not for the UN to impose any decision. We make recommendations.
Do you think that accountability and reconciliation could be achieved overnight?
Not overnight, but it could be achieved.
Tensions flared in Parliament today when a group of opposition MPs requested that the joint opposition be considered an independent group.
A group led by Honourable Dinesh Gunawardena pointed out the need to accept the joint opposition as an independent opposition group and the need to grant certain rights to us. When time is allocated at present, not enough time is given to the joint opposition. We do not receive certain rights. We have submitted a signed document and informed you to recognise us as an independent group. But you have been dragging this on for 6 months.
We are the true opposition. We have clearly mentioned this to the opposition leader as well. At this last minute too, we are calling on you to announce a decision.
The
problem here is that in this parliament, we do not know whether it is the opposition or the joint opposition. There must be one opposition. Honourable Speaker, if they want to smash coconuts in the meantime, let them do so.
Following the impeachment motion in 1989, the group of UMP MPs including Lalit Atulat Mudali was accepted by the parliament as a separate group within the opposition. You are aware of this.
Minister Gamini Dissanayake and the others were not accepted as a separate group, but since he, Lalit Atulat Mudali, Premachandra, Veera Mantri and others were removed from the party, separate time was allocated for them. We said that time could not be allocated from the party. I do not know if this situation has arisen here. I am not the one who said it. It was the MP who said it.
90% of them attend meetings of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Don't you attend when the President convenes meetings?
If we need to meet the President, then we will meet him as the head of state. If it is a question of the party you were elected from, and if, as the Prime Minister says, you must leave if you are evicted from the party, then that is a separate question. We accept that. But if we have not been evicted from the party and are functioning here as MPs, then we are doing it with the people's vote.
I must obtain the views of another 175 MPs. I cannot make singular decisions. I cannot act as a dictator. In the allocation of time today, 40 minutes were allocated for the UPFA. You were given 41 minutes and names of speakers were not submitted. There can be groups within a party, but there cannot be several parties within a group. I cannot be a party to the sin of destroying the alliance. Kindly resolve this among yourselves and then inform us.
Amid the disruptions in the House of Legislation today, the bill proposing to increase female representation in local government bodies by 25% was adopted.
පළාත්පාලන ආයතනවල නියෝජනය ලබා දෙන්න කියලා. බණ්ඩාරනායක මැතිණි විරුද්ධව කෑ ගහනවා. බණ්ඩාරනායක මැතිණියත් එයි බණ්ඩාරනායක මැතිණිය බලින්නේ අපේ පවිත්‍ර වන්‍යාත්‍ය ඇමතිතුමිය මන්ත්‍රීතුමිය ඇයි මෙතුමිය විරුද්ධ වෙන්නේ කාන්තාවන්ට නියෝජනය ලබා දෙන ගැන. එදා කාන්තාවන් ආරක්ෂා කරන කවුරුත් ඉන්නේ නැහැ. ගරු කතානායකතුමා චන්ද්‍රානි බණ්ඩාර ඇමතිතුමියට කතා කරන්න ඉඩ දෙන්න කාන්තාව වෙනුවෙන් කියලා මම ඉල්ලනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම මම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා අද දවසේ මෙවැනි ක්‍රමයක් තුල විශේෂයෙන් මම මතක් කරන්න ඕනේ අපේ කාන්තා නියෝජනය වැඩි කරන්න මේ තියෙන දේශපාලන ක්‍රමය තුල අපිට අසීරුතාවයක් අපි දකිනවා. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි මෙවැනි ක්‍රමයක් විශේෂයෙන්ම අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. අද දින පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ 5%කටත් අඩු ප්‍රමාණයක් තමයි අපේ නියෝජනයේ තියෙන්නේ. මුළු දේශපාලන ක්ෂේත්‍රයේම ගත්තොත් 2%කටත් වඩා අඩු ප්‍රමාණයක් කාන්තා නියෝජනයේ තියෙන්නේ.
කරු ෆයිසා මුස්තාෆා මැතිතුමා
Stop this. You all will oppose, support this bill and will move to be very progressive. Thank you, Speaker.
ගරු රංග බණ්ඩාර
මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව නියෝජනය කරන මම දෙවනි වර කීවේම පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. යෝ තල්ලු ස්ටාර්ට් නේද?
පළවෙනි වගන්තිය
delete lines 27
අත්‍යවශ්‍ය සංශෝධන කීපයක් තියෙන අතුල් කරන්න.
ගරු පළාත් කෙටුම්පත කාර්ය සභාවේ සරකා බලා සංශෝධන සහිතව සම්මත කරන ලද බව දැනුනට කැමැත්තෙමි.
Footage of the tense situation that arose in Parliament cropped up on several social media networks today.
Opposition and government representatives offered these explanations on the situation that arose in Parliament today.
We must state with responsibility that this is not the fishermonger's shop at the junction for them to arbitrarily adopt legislation. These people may be unaware that bills cannot be adopted when members of this chamber are standing in the well of the chamber. The Supreme Court has said that the bill must be amended. The Speaker and the government behaved in this manner without even giving the members a chance to see what the change was. We especially call on the Honourable Speaker to uphold the respect and supremacy of Parliament. Parliament functions because of its superiority and not because of the Speaker. A Speaker cannot make Parliament functions without the members. The attempt to continue with the functions of Parliament, excluding the 51 MPs represented by us, is saddening. We must separately understand the responsibilities of Parliament, the responsibilities of the MPs, the responsibility of the groups and the responsibilities of the representatives of parties that are elected to Parliament. We condemn these actions. They are sabotaging Parliament. On one hand, we can even look at this as a terrorist action. Bringing weapons into Parliament, bombing Parliament and sabotaging Parliament are all terrorist actions. One must decide whether they will give leadership to a terrorist cartel. They must decide if it is democratic or not.
In another story that made the headlines tonight now, Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca took oath as a UNP National List MP in Parliament today.
Sarath Fonseca took oath this afternoon before Speaker Kharuja Surya. Sarath Fonseca took the National List seat left vacant by the demise of late Minister M.K. A.T.S. Gunawardena.
He was the pilot of the victorious fight to rescue the country from the 30-year-long war. Sarath Fonseca, who led the heroic army in burying terrorism where it was born, ended one of the darkest chapters in the nation's history at the Nandi Kadal Lagoon. Sarath Fonseca, who led the army in destroying terrorist fortresses one by one from Mavilaru onwards, was promoted to the rank of general following the end of the conflict. He is incidentally the first officer of the Sri Lanka army to be promoted as a 4-star general while in active service. Even before the clamour over the war victory had died down, amid the many events that transpired at the time, Sarath Fonseca came to the fore once again as the common candidate for the 2010 presidential election. Having given leadership to end the conflict which had decimated the lives of thousands of people, Fonseca turned his attention to listening to the people's grievances. However, the commander who rescued the nation was not given an opportunity to lead it. Sarath Fonseca, who laid the foundation for political change, saw his political journey come to a temporary halt following his imprisonment. In 2011, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison and was stripped of all ranks and medals held. Although the voice that raised the grievances of the people was imprisoned, amid growing public sentiment and pressure at home and abroad, the Rajapaksa regime was compelled to grant General Sarath Fonseca an amnesty. He rose again as the leader of the Democratic Party. Fonseca, who consolidated the voter base at the provincial council elections, went on to stand apart as one of the leaders of the movement towards good governance. In 2015, he was acquitted of all charges by presidential order and was elevated to the 5-star rank of Field Marshal. He is the first Sri Lankan to hold this position. Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, who empowered the unfinished people's struggle by forming an alliance with the United National Front, embarks on a new chapter in his political career today as a National List MP.
In the meantime, News First has commenced a public opinion poll posing the question, if a new political party is formed, who would lead it?
Who will be the leader if a new party is formed? M. Mahinda Rajapaksa, D. Dinesh Gunawardena, G. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, B. Basil Rajapaksa, W. Vimal Weerawansa, or O. Other. Type news, space your views and send it to 7788. You can also post your views on www.facebook.com/newsfirst.english.
By 11 a.m. this morning, 74.42% of those who participated in the SMS poll by sending their responses to 7788 believe that Mahinda Rajapaksa would lead a new political party if it is formed. Here are some of the responses we received.
Speaking further during media briefing today, Prince Zayed Al Hussein also noted that the acceptance of the Geneva resolution was not a weakness on the part of Sri Lanka.
There are many myths and misconceptions about the resolution and what it means for Sri Lanka. It is not a gratuitous attempt to interfere with or undermine the country's sovereignty or independence. It is not some quasi-colonial act by some nebulous foreign power. The acceptance of the resolution was a moment of strength, not weakness, by Sri Lanka. The world wants Sri Lanka to be a success story. For a country to be stable, to be a success, it needs to have a strong, impartial, and credible justice system. Sri Lanka has many excellent judges, lawyers, and law enforcement officials. But over the years, the system they depended on, and which depends on them, became highly politicized, unbalanced, unreliable. It is for these reasons that the report and the Human Rights Council resolution suggest international participation in the accountability mechanisms set up to deal with international crimes and gross human rights violations committed by individuals on both sides. Only a year ago, large numbers of Sri Lankans voted for change, for reconciliation, for truth, for justice. It would be a great shame if a minority of extreme voices on both sides who are bent on disruption are allowed or were allowed to prevail by creating fear where there should have been hope. Sri Lanka needs a serious debate about these very serious issues on which its future depends.
Western Provincial Councillor Susara Dinal emphasised the need for the general public to come together to eradicate drugs. He made this statement at a meeting held at the Western Province Council today.
At a school sports meet I was at, the vice principal of the school brought a boy of about 10 years old who was not in uniform and made him sit at the back. When I inquired about it from the vice principal, she said that she called the child together with another boy who is of the same age selling packets of drugs during the sports meet, and that the other child had fled. It was during the same week that the president brought a group including the director of customs and spoke about the methods drugs are smuggled into the country and how he plans to eradicate this as a whole. On one hand, the country needs to unite to eradicate the drugs across the island, whereas on the other hand, we all have a responsibility to take measures to eradicate the sale of drugs within school premises. Honourable Chairman, there should be a broad program to tackle this issue. I strongly believe that this isn't the only school which faces this situation. Therefore, as the Provincial Council, it is our responsibility to find a solution to this menace. How can teachers stand guard at the gates and challenge those who throw packets of drugs into the school? Not even police protection at the very least was provided for the school sports meet. The police station is just 500 meters away. The police are aware that this school faces this problem.
At the end of day 5 of the South Asian Games, India are leading the medals table with 76 gold medals and 122 medals in total. Sri Lanka is second with 17 gold medals and 87 medals in total. Let's now take a look at the medals table. Speaking to Newsfirst earlier today, Globus Vision, an organization which has been providing European and American business circles with informative publications on world economies, said Sri Lanka's economic landscape has gained much international exposure.
We're expecting to showcase four things mainly. One, the peace and reconciliation moment in the country. We're expecting to showcase that this government is doing important efforts so that the country can pull together towards progress. Secondly, we're going to show the economic consolidation that Sri Lanka has been trying to put together. Thirdly, the international outreach. This is a government and a country that has been using trade and diplomacy as two of its main strategies to gain international exposure and success. And fourth, obviously, we gotta talk about tourism. This is the fastest growing sector in the country. It's a country that's opening its doors worldwide. It has been beating all the records that it has been putting as objectives. So this is a time to stop referring to Sri Lanka as the teardrop of India and start calling it the wonder of Asia.
This awe-inspiring man has dedicated his life to the service of others, highlighting the extraordinary nature of humanity. I stood for elections and received a majority of 112 votes from the village of my birth. Considering the faith the people had placed in me, I chose to pay tribute to them with social service. Chandrasiri was also a pioneer in the conservation of the historic Nar tree, one of the 5 protected trees in Sri Lanka. Sacrificing his personal wealth and labor for the betterment of society, Chandrasiri is engaged in a rare brand of selfless voluntary service.
අපට නොමිලේ පරිගණක දුන්න නිසා පරිගණක වැඩ ගොඩක් ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන්.
In spite of being in the twilight years of his life, the unfaltering service of Chandrasiri Hettiarachchi challenges even the energy of youth, placing him among the 10 finalists for V Awards 2015.